This YCN segment is brought to you by Echo Communications, a digitally integrated commercial printer.
Welcome back, YCN Sports Talk. Jeremy Stout, Brett Franklin in studio, and we move over to the college football field, and obviously college football playoff rankings, the most up-to-date ones announced last night. A little bit of movement. Next Monday will be, or Sunday, will be the final ones. Obviously, big weekend, college football championship weekend. Brett, some things are still up in the air, but a lot of things aren't. What are you looking for overall in a big picture this weekend? Some big games still.
Yeah, I think the first three are solidified, right? I think
seems that way.
Alabama, Notre Dame, Clemson. Clemson should roll in their ACC title game. Also, obviously, Notre Dame not playing in one, but they run the table. Got to imagine that they're in. And then Alabama and Georgia. Imagine if Georgia loses, obviously they'll be out, but there's still talk that if they lose or they play a tight game that they should get in. Here's my whole thing about the college football playoffs. And I know there'll be there's a lot more diehard college football folks, SEC and all that, but my whole thing is, if you don't win your conference, if you don't win a conference title, you should not be in the postseason. So if the scenario, which I don't think happens, I think Alabama wins, but if Alabama loses on Sunday, why should they be in the college football playoff? You have to win your conference. If you don't, then you probably shouldn't have been there. So this may be a moot point because, like I said, I think Alabama will win on Sunday in the SEC championship game. That number 4 spot, boy, does Ohio State sneak in there, even though they snuck in last year and they got blown out? I mean, these first 2 games of this postseason, Jeremy, they really haven't been very competitive. So I'm curious how much of that of a factor is saying, well, you know what, we had Ohio State in there last year and they stunk it up. And I just don't like Ohio State, so I don't want to see him in there. But I think there is more so with the 4 seed, what's going to happen there. But I root for chaos, so I would love to see Clemson lose. I'd love to see Bama lose, and then just have complete, utter chaos for that final posting when the playoffs come out. But that's just me.
Well, I mean, there's still a possibility. Obviously, there's some big favorites. We know Alabama and how good they've been, but Georgia gave them a game, obviously, in the championship game. Maybe something happens.
Do you agree with me, though, that if you don't win your conference championship, you shouldn't be in the postseason?
Well, there's 2 questions on that. Is my opinion and is what the committee's going to do. Because I can see where you're coming from, where if you don't win your conference championship game, you're not in. But we've seen the committee doesn't care about that. So, it's 2 things to unpack. Is it what we think or what will happen?
If you weren't good enough to win your conference, then why should you be in the Final Four? That's just my whole thing. And I'm not saying, that's, but the committee has been all over the place as far as which way they go on that.
That's true. So we've got Notre Dame, they're in, because they're not going to get beat.
Unfortunately, yes.
And they're in. Alabama, probably in, because even with a loss, like we talked about, they're probably going to be in. Clemson, they get in if they win. If they lose, it might be a little different, because they're not as dominant as Alabama
and
is.
Pitt's not very good, and if Clemson doesn't win that, they're out.
So you've got those 3 because we assume they are going to win. Is there any scenario? What's the scenario that Ohio State jumps over Oklahoma if they both win? Is there any scenario?
If they go out and they crush Northwestern in the Big Ten championship, I hate to say
maybe Oklahoma wins small.
Yeah, and boy, I mean, I'm just really tired of seeing the same teams in year. I mean, personally, for up to me, I would love to see UCF. I know they're missing their quarterback, but you know what? Like, we've been here before. Oklahoma has had a little bit better of a chance than Ohio State is in years past, but it's probably going to be between one of those 2, and it's just going to be predictable. And that's one of the reasons why I love the college football playoff. Don't get me wrong; it's better than the BCS. Let's mix it up a little bit. Like, if we're not going to have those conference champions in, why not UCF? They've run the table for the last 2 years. Let's give them a chance. I know their quarterback's down, but something different would be nice this year.
Okay, so something different. Maybe in the future, there's been a lot of people talking about expanding them to 6 games or 6 teams, making 2 teams get a bye, or 8 teams. Does that really solve any problems, though, or does that go back to your point where it just becomes, okay, you get an extra week of football, and then the other teams get beat by Alabama and Ohio State?
I'm fine with 6. 6, 8, however you want to do it, I'm totally fine with that. There just needs to be an expansion here. There needs to be given an opportunity to those mid-major conferences like UCF, like the old Boise States back in the day. There should be an opportunity for that because the SEC, it's a good football conference. I think it gets a little bit too much love and gets a little bit too much praise. But we need to look at the whole picture here. I hope it changes. I know they still have another couple of years on the current deal right now. But once they see the money, it'll change.
They'll change.
Trust me.
I mean, I would go with like a 5, maybe a 16 playoff where you get the Power 5 conferences. You win your conference you're in, and then there's one at large. Whether it's it's UCF or Notre Dame who's not a conference, or maybe it's Alabama who loses their championship. I mean, there's something, but you're right. More money, they'll get it.
Or put it together where, a Power 5 team that's on the bubble plays that mid-major team like a UCF.
Right.
And then they figure it in. Let's see those matchups. I would love to see the David versus Goliaths, and I think we'd have a lot of fun games.
It would be interesting. We'll take a break, and when we come back, we'll talk some Celtics, some more ups and downs, continue to flounder around 500. We'll talk about what they need to do in the next month to turn this season around. You're watching YCN Sports Talk.